right. Hi, Win. How are you?
I'm well. How are you, Isabel? It's been interesting last couple of weeks with our podcast. People are really getting into it.
It is, and welcome everyone to Synergy.
Yeah.
This is our episode 6,
Episode 6. Then the word is
Detachment.
detachment. So basically, stop listening now.
Yeah, goodbye.
Yeah. So yeah, that was it.
That was easy, though. You're funny. I love it.
um, well, I had an interesting thing occur recently. Somebody told me that they've seen that we have our podcast and that it's called Synergy, and all of a sudden everywhere they look they see the word synergy written somewhere.
Really? That's
Yeah, and they haven't even been able to listen to one of our podcasts yet. They've been too busy.
Oh my goodness. That's awesome. I love it. It's all the synchronicities, right?
Exactly.
Huh.
But yeah, all the comments that I'm getting, and I know that people are leaving on our podcast and our social media, is people are really getting something out of this.
Oh, that's great. That's good. I actually just connected with my brother, so I'm hoping that my brother is in Germany. So I'm hoping
Okay.
that we'll get some listeners from Germany. So if
Oh,
you're
cool.
in Germany, let us know.
Hey, Germany or Australia or wherever you are in the world.
Exactly. Yeah, so detachment is the word. And I was actually, it popped in my head. I can't recall. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago we picked the word?
Yeah. A couple days ago, I asked what the word was, and you said detachment.
Yeah, and then like it just popped, and then I started thinking about it with my ego mind, of course, and I thought that's interesting because we just had the last episode or 2 episodes ago was illusion, and I feel
Uh-huh.
so much connected to illusion. So I'm excited to see what's going to come out of this one.
Me too. I know. And again, for the listeners, if you have been following along or are new, we pick a word. We don't talk about it until we go live. So the word came through 2 days ago for us, but this is the first time we're actually communicating about it. And
Yeah,
that's how we do our episodes,
exactly.
which is kind of a fun way to stay detached because it's almost like you just said, like you started thinking about it. And once you start to think about it, well, what we do with our mind is we like to get caught up in thoughts of things that we might want to communicate or involve ourselves in. So we're already creating a funnel to operate with it, and we're limiting then everything that doesn't fit in that funnel.
Exactly. And usually when the words come out, I try not to think about it because I don't want to I don't want to prepare anything. I want to
Right.
really be in the flow of whatever comes.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I don't know about you, but if I think about it, there's nothing that come, and then I go into that space of like almost anxious. I'm like, "Oh my goodness, like what if I have nothing to say?"
I'm sure I could talk the whole hour and you could just listen.
It's just funny how it's working. It's almost as if like my subconscious is like, no, 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 don't think about it. I'm not giving you anything.
Oh man,
Let's
that
all
sneaky little
create
ego.
the podcast.
Detachment. The first thing that comes to me when um, is like before my awakening, anytime I would hear about Buddhist teachings about non-attachment, is how boring that sounded. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, aren't we living in a world where we're supposed to want things and be driven by things? Like, that's what we're taught, right? At least in the Western world, especially, like, be driven by your wants and your needs and your desires, and that's shoved down our throats in our marketing and our commercials and and in college and all these things. It's like if you don't have the fire to succeed, who are you? If
Yeah,
you're not number one, you've lost. These things are all like creating a story for us that isn't even true.
yeah.
And so detachment really means detaching from the slavery to those concepts that humans made.
I like that. It's interesting to hear you position it that way because now that I think about it, it's true for me too. Like detachment was really a not sexy word, and it's not something I wanted in the past.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think of like almost someone who doesn't care about anything when they're detached.
Mm-hmm.
There's like this,
Like they're very vapid and just like don't even exist. They're just like drooling. They have no want or desire in life.
yeah.
It's like it's the mind saying that there's only two options: wanting and needing everything, or wanting and having nothing and being totally void of life.
Yeah,
But there's
exactly.
all this color spectrum in between that detachment gives you access to, when
Yeah,
detachment is understood as a tool to not be enslaved by wants and needs, to have them, but to not be enslaved by them, so that you become like a horse with blinders on and you can't see all the amazing things that you're capable of doing.
exactly. And for me, like now I perceive it similarly, in a sense of detaching from the ego. Like it's still part of you, but you can detach and observe as opposed to stay connected to it.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like relationships. I did counseling a lot, and I still do counseling, but I used to do a lot of relationship counseling.
Mm.
And I've noticed with my patient or clients, I should say, that detachment was so important in relationships because
Mm.
when we start dating and when we go into a phase of where we are a couple, we
Mm-hmm.
start saying we, and it becomes like that this union of the personalities.
Mm.
And the key to, well, at that time I believed that the key for happy couples was to be capable of detaching from each other
Mm-hmm.
and observing that they were two different people. So when one was doing something, the other one wasn't embarrassed about the other one's action because they were
Mm.
detached, they were two different persons.
Mm.
Do you understand? Like, does that make sense?
Completely.
Yeah.
So you did a lot of counseling with people going through this process.
Of detachment. And for me, it was one of the key components that I would bring into the couple in order to make their life better, was that
Mm.
aspect of detachment, which could almost be perceived as independence versus codependence. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that sense. And then that's when I started seeing detachment as a positive aspect as opposed to rejection
Right.
or something
Yeah.
negative.
Yeah. I think that's interesting because I feel like it ties in with the awakening in many ways, in every way, and more so. I like the first thing that comes to mind is Osho talking about love. Love is not possessive because possession is not love, um, and possession is fear and
Yeah,
insecurity,
yeah,
and love is liberation and freedom to experience all sorts of things that are completely restricted by the need for possession. And I almost feel that possessiveness and attachment maybe are two different things. Because attachment, like I can really be attached to a partner and
yeah.
really want these things, but
Family.
possession then makes it like an ownership thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna
It's
go close my door.
oh, okay. It's yeah, attachment. Because for me, you can be attached. So in the world of Reiki, when I do energy healing,
Yeah.
I physically imagine a cord that attached myself to the other body that I'm bringing channeling energy to. And those cords, I detach them at the end because I don't want to keep an attachment with that person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So to some extent, the detachment at that moment is actually the beginning of the healing for the other individual.
Yeah. That's really good. It's a great example. And I've seen it where people who do the healing arts, if we will, like Reiki, healing touch, things like that. I've watched and I've had a lot of teachers that intentionally create cords between me when they're teaching me
Yeah.
or doing a session with me. And I watch as they get really angry when I immediately detach the cords that they put in. And I've seen that be it's interesting. Every time we do an episode, I share with you examples that I've experienced that that you have a lot of times not seemingly recognized. So it's kind of cool. Like for some reason, I've needed to learn through people all the things that don't work well, and
Yeah.
you seem to just have kind of had a lot of instances where it flows a different way, and I think in the process of not attachment, non-attachment as well in our awakening journey, like just our two different kind of ways of experiencing awakening, are good things too. Like when we talk about awakening, we also shouldn't get attached to it having to go a particular way. We,
Yeah.
like if I learned the way that you've learned, I have a sense that my mind would be bored, you know?
Yeah.
And if you learn the way that I've learned, I have a sense that you'd be maybe tanked or confused,
Yeah.
you know? And so we kind of get what we need in the awakening, and we shouldn't seek a particular person's way, and we shouldn't judge that we're receiving an awakening our way,
Right.
because it's keeping up with the Joneses. It's like, well, your awakening went this way, I should be having it that, or my awakening is going this way, your way is like horrible, like
Yeah.
that's also an attachment to, because we're getting the formula that we need to bring us the awakening that we're supposed to have,
That's
I
so
feel.
true. Yeah, absolutely. And everyone, there's not just two ways. Like everyone is unique and it goes
Right.
through that own idea. And it's interesting because the more you're attached to one aspect,
Uh-huh.
it seems like that aspect detached from you quicker. I don't know how to
Right.
explain that in the sense like the more you want something, the
Uh-huh.
less it's coming to you. It's like it's
Right.
moving away. It's so interesting
I
sometimes.
call that I call that magic, really, because it's, or, and I have recently also said it's kind of the male female dance in a heterosexual dance,
Yeah.
where the woman is kind of the mystic holder, and the more the guy pays attention, if it's going to be a healthy dance, the more the guy pays attention, the more the woman becomes disinterested, or at least seemingly becomes disinterested.
Mhm.
And it has to become more like tango, where one leads and then the other leads, but you're always kind of guiding each other through this dance. And I think it's what you're saying right there. What I've learned is through magic, the more you pay attention to something, like you said, the more you actually block it out
Yeah. Or I don't know if it's paying attention or if it's more wanting to control it.
by trying to control it.
Yeah. I think it's the control aspect. Like
Mm,
I've noticed that like as soon as I'm trying to take control of something as opposed to go with the flow,
mm,
like things go sideways. It just doesn't work out.
yeah.
And
Uh,
in so many aspects, like it could be trying to control someone's personality, right?
yeah.
Um,
Right.
control a kid from stopping a tantrum. Sometimes it seems like it's going worse, or it could be
Right.
trying to control the outcomes of an action that you're
Hmm.
trying. So,
That kind of goes down to it. Yeah, I feel like that's tying back into my delineation of possessiveness and attachment.
mm-hmm.
Like, so my teacher in the Amazon says, when he does the work that he does as a shaman, that he can't be attached to an outcome, and that's true. But you can be attached for him to do his work. He has to be attached to the helping the people on the journey,
Yeah,
because if he was detached from that, he wouldn't even have people come to him.
right.
So I feel like an attachment is healthy when it gives us the drive to go on a journey.
Yes.
I feel like when we start to control it and become possessive of it, that's when it starts to go the ways that we don't want it to.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when you say a healthy attachment, I think you deep down, we usually always know if that's what we're meant to do or if
Right,
we're meant to be.
right.
And sometimes we are just so attached to the outcome or to the aspect or fantasy of it that we have a hard time realizing or accepting that actually we need to detach from this, like we need
Mm-hmm,
to let it go and
mm-hmm,
just move on. So and it's funny
yeah.
because I had that experience over the weekend where I was working with someone, and that person was seeking guidance in regards to a relationship.
Mm,
And all the cards and all the guidance that I got was all about detaching from the situation and really let it go and like stop trying to control it.
mm-hmm,
But it was so hard for that person to hear that. And
mm,
in the end, 2 days after the reading, this person reached out and is like, you know, I knew it all along. That's what I was supposed to do. I just
mm,
needed to hear it from someone. And
yeah.
completely confirmed to me that when we're meant to detach from something, or letting go, however you want to say it's usually deep down we kind of know about it.
It's so true. We always do. And I think that brings up intuition, which might be its own word for another episode. I think it should be. But I actually saw somebody recently post on Instagram that intuition driven by fear is not intuition. Intuition driven
Right.
by whatever we sense
Yeah.
is I wish I could tell you the way that the meme was so succinct. It was like maybe 2 sentences, very short. It was a perfect way to say that inside our intuition, I see it actually more often played out people who call themselves intuitives in a fear-based projection
Huh.
than actual intuition. And I'm experiencing a lot about that the last few months, and it's also been spinning my awakening in my ability to hold space in particular ways, because before I was using a lot of that intuitive sort of thing, but now it's reshaping itself, and I think it's because I've let go of more fears. And for me, those fears have been let go of because of my own detachment journey from my wife and twin flame Allison, as we've been guided after several years being very myopic and insular together, traveling the world to grow, now to break that apart and to go and to start share this love that we've encountered through each other with the world at large. And we thought we were going to do that as a couple the whole time, but the universe said, no, nobody can get into your bubble. You're too strong. Nobody has a possibility, you guys. And so we've been going through this detachment journey where we each then bring in a different partner, her somebody first, and then me somebody recently. And that starts to really show how attached and possessive we had become with each other. And now that that's all breaking apart, we have more room. We're becoming more of the individuals that you've been talking about when you talk about relationship counseling. And that the mind goes, well, what's left then? Well, if you've done the heart work, if you do the heart work, the heart's going, there's everything left. You just got to let go more. The answer is to go further through it and to allow it more. And then, so now Allison and my magic is both like starting to really grow and become something. Like a good example for me is this podcast you and I are doing and how successful that's already becoming.
Yeah.
If Allison and I had been holding on to our death grip that we had created, you and I wouldn't even be able to do this podcast with me being fully open, because she was attached to how I should be and shouldn't be. I was attached to how she should be and she shouldn't be. So a lot of the stuff that she's doing now was an issue for me when we were a couple.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're staying married, it's not an attachment or possessiveness thing. It feels like it's the right thing to do for us to stay married through the journey, because it still gives us um, sort of the focal point that we still have that connection. But now we're living 3,000 miles apart and having different relationships with other people and with ourselves. And that it's like one of the most painful experiences you could go through. We all know what that's like, to separate from somebody you're really attached to and possessive of.
Yeah.
But also what's shifting with me in this magic flow is that my intuitive abilities were connected to the way that we were in the relationship. And now that our relationship is totally taking on a new form, or formlessness maybe, so is my intuitive abilities. Like they're also shaping, like the stuff that I used to get for information doesn't work anymore now.
Right. And the beauty of detachment in relationship is that once you get over these difficulty of like trying to understand what it means and how it feels and etc. before you get
Yeah.
into that, like freedom and you realize like wow, okay,
Yeah.
once you get over that, it actually brings you closer.
Right.
Amazing to see the process. And I want to bring that analogy to the relationship between, because you've mentioned intuition, and for me it's almost like that couple, the intuition and the ego
Mm-hmm.
is attached. When you're driven by intuition with fear, it's completely
Exactly.
attached. And detaching from it means that when you feel fear, and that's always what I teach in my intuition class, is that
Mm-hmm.
when you have intuition, if you have any fear, anger, or any intense emotion,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
your ego, it's never your intuition, ever. There might
Right.
be intuition hidden in it, but you can trust that your ego is extremely present.
Right.
Intuition is usually calm, neutral. Like it's just, you just know. It's
Right. Right.
and
Right.
and that's the, like that's how you know it's the truth. So
Yeah.
for me is the detachment, is when you're capable of detaching the ego and the intuition,
Uh-huh.
they actually become closer. And it's hard to explain
It
because
is.
it becomes closer in the sense that you understand the true self of the ego, the true self and the intuition. Just like in a couple, you start seeing the other person for who they truly are once you're
Mm.
detached from them.
Mm-hmm.
You start seeing everything for what is the true energy around it, which is like that divine energy, like
Mm-hmm.
integrity of it. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? Like, do you see the
Yes. It makes sense to me. I don't know if the listeners, but I think the way you just explained it is probably pretty tangible for most people. I think you did a good job with it. And because intuitively we all know what you said, and the way you just described it, I think really taps into that energy flow that we all contain. And
Mm-hmm.
so even if the mind is going, wait, explain that again, or let me try and wrap my head around it, that's actually antithetical to what you should be doing, and which is to go, wait, let me just feel it without projection and just honor what it brings through.
Yeah.
And when we do that, then we allow the path of least resistance, the real river of divinity, to flow through ourselves. I had
Go ahead.
in my yoga teacher training class a couple years ago, all of a sudden this like wrecking ball of a girl came in out of nowhere and just started whipping up the studio and destroying all the things that we were trying to create. Meanwhile, the teacher was all up in her pussy and like, oh my God, she's like the fucking best thing. She's going to do all the things that we've been working on, and totally like severing each one of us who had been saying, I'll bring this and I'll bring this. The teacher was like, just totally cut us all off and was like, nope, now we got this girl and she's going to do it all. And didn't talk with any of us, just totally like took away our power,
Yeah.
neutered us all. And then that girl, I'm going to call her out. I don't know if she'll ever listen to it or not. Her name is Lolly. And she was like, so I had this vision when I was sitting there meditating in Hawaii, and it totally guided me back here to the mountains of Idaho, and it told me I was going to do this and do that. I was like, I wanted to bang my head against the wall and crack my fucking skull open, because I was like, that's not a vision. That's your brattiness saying, I had a vision. That's not a fucking vision. That's not intuition. That's your fucking brattiness and need to be controlling and need to have everybody suck your pussy. Show that's not intuition. That is like absorb. That's being an energy vampire and making everybody try and go your way. It's
Right.
totally different. That's totally attachment and possessiveness, and it's all based out of fear and self-loathing. And all it does is come in and train wrecks a room, which has its own unique divine purpose. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that it's not divine by design, but what I'm saying is we don't always have to have this wrecking ball sort of approach to things. Like that didn't have to happen. There could be another way to bring in the energy flow and not have everybody go, I'm the fucking next best thing, like vote for me for president while I show you my sexuality is the best thing in the fucking world.
Yeah.
No, well, we already have that president, and the president before that was the same, and the president before that was the same, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, you're not bringing anything new to the table. You're just being another douche, you know? That's not intuition. That intuition really is, like you said, it's guided by just the inner knowing. The inner knowing will rarely give, inner knowing will rarely tell you that you're going to get a bunch of validation from people.
Right, and it's to detach from needing that validation. Like, I'm looking at society right now, and actually just before I connected with you, I was on Instagram, and I
Uh-huh.
got so disgusted because all the pictures that I saw on Instagram is like, people are asking for so much approval from others. Like,
Uh-huh.
look at my body, look how amazing I look,
Right.
I just gave birth to a baby, but now I have a six pack. Like, it's like,
Uh-huh.
it's just like that type of like needy energy, which
Uh-huh.
for me, I'm like, oh, whatever. I just put my phone aside because I I don't connect with that at all.
Yeah.
And I don't envy those people. I don't, like, I just don't attach, like, I have no
Yeah.
connection with that type of energy. And for me, that's what we need. We need to be able to detach from that seeking others for approval, seeking to
Mm,
be like others too. I like, it must be so hard to be a mother right now because
mm,
there's so many posts and everything about how your body should look after you give
mm,
birth and
mm.
etc. And
Yeah.
that if you're like just a little attached to the idea of being like others, oh my goodness, it must be horrible to go through this.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of detachment is that capacity to be your unique self and listening to your own heart, or your own intuition, however you want to call it, but your
Mm-hmm.
own voice, like who
Mm-hmm.
you are. And I feel like
Yeah.
what you were bringing up with that story is this person just like lay out everything that she wants to get done, but seeks approval from others to kind of like, I guess, put in action what her vision was.
And the vision, when it's motivated by the things that it's motivated on, I got to tell you, people, that's not a vision. There is nothing visionary about that.
The intention, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, intention is good, like, but again, anything that comes from an attachment to an outcome, as my teacher said, drives you in a way that you'll learn plenty from, and so will the people who engage in your energy field, in your story.
Right.
You'll all learn that it's all divine. The
Yeah.
thing is like, if you want the river to flow the best way that it's supposed to flow,
Yeah.
and then you have to detach from the way you think it's supposed to go and the things that you think you want, and you have to listen and know that your system is already, and I'm learning this, your system's already carrying all the things that you want and you came here to have. And they are as big as you want them to be, but they're probably nowhere near how you think they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And you will be all the things that you came here to be if you go through this journey of allowing yourself to just flow like an energy channel, because it's already there. You know, if you think you need $1 million for validation, you might get it, but you're going to be as unhappy as everybody else who's got $1 million from that need.
Exactly.
You know, but if you get $1 million based off of like just blissed out because you're like really flowing in your river of truth, that $1 million is going to turn into 5, turn into 10, and you're going to still be just as amazing to be around.
Yeah.
You know, to yourself and to others, and then it's going to be, then you're going to stop complaining about Trump and Obama and Clinton's and Bush and Richard Branson. You're going to start complaining about all these people because you're going to have as much abundance as they, and you might even be a little bit happier, and you won't be upset by them not being happy and having that money because you'll be so connected to your own happiness and your own truth.
Exactly. Yeah. And the other aspect of detachment, and it kind of goes back to what you're saying, like the emotional aspect, like the reactive self, and like when you're reacting to something. It's funny because yesterday at my work, so I'm a project manager, and a
Uh-huh.
lot of time I am the owner of the outcomes, but I'm
Uh-huh.
not the control master. Like it doesn't,
I see.
like I own the outcomes, but often I'm not the leader of the act.
Uh-huh.
So
Right, right.
yesterday there was a situation that arose where I lost complete control of the project, but yet everyone was blaming it on me that it went sideways, but it was
Mm-hmm.
not because of my
Mm-hmm.
action. All that to say that I felt like it was almost unfair that I was being blamed for something I didn't do. And I got so frustrated that I could not function. Like I was so frustrated. I felt like my head was going to explode. That was how frustrated I was. And then I thought, okay, wait, like this is my physical body. This is my ego. I can detach from this. Like I can
Mm-hmm.
step away. And that's exactly what I did. I kind of detached. And the way that I did it was by writing down, like observing how I felt and writing it down. Like I observed that my heart is beating really fast, that I feel like my head is going to explode. Like I was just basically writing down and observing, like being the observant of what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, I started laughing at myself again. And
Mm-hmm.
it used to be my reaction when like I have like big triggers and stuff going on inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
I just started laughing at myself and I thought, this is so funny. The ego is so funny right now. Like it's just like super mad, can't get out of it. Like it's almost like I felt so detached in the sense that I was like two different people in the same head. And it's
Yeah.
so hard to explain, but when you experience that, it's fascinating. I thought it
Yeah.
was so interesting.
I know. And I think if anything, I become attached to the awakening realizations. Like,
Yeah.
and even then, if you try and encourage them to show up, they don't. And that's a majority, again, a majority of the spiritual community is always like, it's so attached to this personality based and this like competition based sort of thing. Like, oh, you had a vision? So did I. Oh, you went on drank ayahuasca? Dude, so did I. Like, you know, oh, like you had this aha moment? I did too, man. Let me tell you about it. Like, oh God. No, because if you're really actually having these things,
Yeah.
you don't need to sit there and shout them to the world.
That's
You're excited. I mean, it is exciting to have these things, these aha moments and these big breakthroughs. Um, but they become, I mean, ecstatic and they become blissful. And it's not, and you start to realize that you can't share that anyway through words. You can
it's
just like, you can commune with people who have these similar experiences and just sort of swim in that, like, oh yeah, like, wow, we get it. And we're really, it's nice to convene with somebody who has and
yeah.
things like that. But I don't know, we become just attached. Everything that we're attached to is really all about, I get it because we're social and we want camaraderie and we want people we resonate with and connect with, and we like to use the word tribe and things like that. But and family and all that, and I get that. Like it all has a point, it all has a purpose. But detachment from the need of these things and just being in that like loving flow with yourself as the process is working is what brings more of it in. So it really is not counterintuitive, it's counter thought. It's like really like the more we try, the less genuine situations show up. The less we try, the more it just starts to become a reality in our truth. So it really does become down to like what the Bible said. It's, like getting, it's easier for what is it? It's harder for a rich, however, the rich man getting into heaven in the eye of the needle or something like that. Anyway, but basically, like, um, it's the more we try and fit through the eye of the needle, the more we try and make things work, the less will actually go through. There's just a gentle way to just kind of flow right into that heavenly divine nature, and that's what Christ was really trying to teach. It's like, don't try so hard,
Yeah.
don't try and bring so much through a tiny hole, like let it all go, relax, detach, and then, but you still can have millions of dollars and you can still have millions of followers on Instagram if that's your thing. but it'll come from a place of sincerity, as opposed to, here, let me troll your page to can make you a follower and then unfollow you as soon as you follow me, just so that you're following my way. Like, it's just kind of all, we just do things all backwards, and we see how disgusting it is on every level, from the popular people down to the average person on social media. Like, it's a thing that we do,
Yeah.
thinking we're going to get somewhere by trying so hard, and really we just got to just kind of relax, breathe, and just go with the flow that is already there. But we do have to be, I think, attached to the journey, because then we become opposite. And I think, really, like Osho said it really well when he called Gandhi a radical anti-materialist.
Right, right. It was the complete opposite.
Complete opposite. Like, that's attachment to non-attachment. You
Right,
know,
right.
like, it shows that you can survive and be really big, but did it show like what we're really here to be? No, I don't think that it
And
set the
that is not
example.
a journey. It's not everyone's journey.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And it goes back to what we were sharing in the last episode, where like the more the more people try, it looks so fake. Like,
Yes.
the more people are attached to those like aspects. Like, right now it's like everyone wants to be vegan, everyone wants to
Uh-huh.
do this. Like, it's so
Uh-huh.
you have like that whole hipster cohort of
Yeah.
like one thing becomes so cool, like
Right.
everyone wants to be in that type of group. And I find it's interesting because you can see, and we talked about that in the last episode, the society is craving uniqueness, like being
Mm.
unique, but yet we're incapable of detaching yet. Like, it's
Right.
still attached to that aspect of being like others.
Right.
Mhm.
And wanted by others, and in our family and in our tribe, when really I've told so many people who are like, I found my tribe. Oh yeah, but you still seem really fucked up, so why don't you need to go travel, you need to get away from those people. And then if you're supposed to come back to them, then you will. They'll always be there as a support system if they're true, if they're genuine.
Right.
They'll encourage you to go get away, to go find yourself, rather than. And this is one thing that Osho did that I didn't like in one of the books that I read. Somebody asked him, well, what if I want to go out and do this and do this? He was like, well, why would you leave me? Why would you leave my place?
He was
You have,
attached.
well, you have everything you need right here. And I'm like, oh, see, Osho, you never got over all the things that you're teaching.
Hmm.
I don't know if anybody ever could get yet, not in the current form. I don't know if we could not be hypocrites. But so his teachings were what they were, and they were good, and they're still good now, and they're going to be good for a long, long time.
Yeah.
But what we have to do is recognize the fallacies that even occur in the greatest of teachers, including you and me. We have many of them ourselves. And people should know that don't take everything we say as gospel either. Like, it should be your own journey and use your own. The Buddha supposedly said it best when he was like, don't attach to any thought or any teacher, even if I've said it. Like, go out and find resonance with your own way,
Yeah.
you know?
You just said something, it made me think really deeply. Like, I'm thinking of my best friend, and I'm thinking of the connection I have with you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the human experience is all about connection. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
crave connection, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the attachment is when we start seeing each other the same thing that we think are awesome about each other.
Yeah.
And that's when we become attached. But if I'm capable of detaching and seeing you for who you are, but also
Right.
what you can teach me,
Yeah.
what you can bring to me, in the sense of teaching, not in the
Right.
sense that we're attached to the same like ideas, or like, I recognize we both have very different ideas, which I
Good.
think for me is a beauty.
Yes.
That does not make me want to um stop being friend with you. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Right.
And I think that's the key in keeping human connection with detachment, is being capable of seeing the other individual for who they are, for
Right.
the unique aspect, but
Uh-huh.
also to see like what we can learn from them.
Right. and not go, here's what I'm trying to teach you. I have wisdom to give you.
Right, as opposed to me pushing on you, here's what I want to teach you. I want to know,
Right.
how can you teach me? What are the things I am to learn from you? Because I think
Yes.
that's the purpose in life, is to learn anything that we can learn. Like learning
Hmm.
starts from the beginning of the first second that we're on earth is all about
Yeah, exactly. Because Earth is a big school.
learning.
That's not even a metaphysical thought. Most genres of belief systems will call Earth a learning school, and that's what we're here for. And it's true, and I always do seek out the teacher in other people instead of the projection of what I think they are, or just focusing on the things that I like, that I resonate with, and trying to forget about the things that I don't.
Yeah,
You know, like that every time I've done anything like that, it's set me up for failure. And it's my fault that I did that, not the other person's. I projected on them. If they weren't in a place of self-love, they received it like really well because that's what they wanted, was to be validated for the things that somebody loved about them. Meanwhile, they're trying to hide the things that they think aren't loved, and that just perpetuates self-hate
yeah,
and sabotage and things like that. So yeah. So again, like everything you just said is true. I have switched myself to say everybody is my teacher. If
mhm,
somehow I'm teaching somebody something, then they'll let me know what they're learning from me. And off by allowing myself to be in that reality, people tend to tell me that what they're learning from me is who I am,
yeah, yeah,
and that they love that. And
yeah,
so, and that's when we're all really our best rock star, our best movie star, our best politician. We're actually emulating. I mean, we're creating who we are through being one with what we are.
yeah,
Not we don't force it anymore. And then suddenly everybody wants to be around us, to absorb some of that. But then we have to go, okay, well, then in that process becomes a completely new thing, because now the bigger you get, the harder it is for people for you to go, no, this is my message, and to not be attached to what people take from you and
exactly,
what they do with what they take from you. Then
exactly.
you become like Christ or Buddha or Osho or all these other big teachers, and it's like, but I never actually really said that. Christ and Buddha never said make a religion out of me. They said don't. And here we have war of religions over these things. And but that's not what they said. They said don't do that. Like that's what I'm trying to teach you, is everything you need is within. There should be no religion, you know.
No, no,
So you can't, but they couldn't be attached to what people did with their message thousands and millions of years later. Thousands of years was probably a better idea, but thousands of years later, it's all askew from whatever they were actually teaching.
hmm,
And but we have to like be willing to just accept responsibility for who we are and just be it, and then let whatever happens around happens, you
right,
know. But
yeah,
if we're really authentic to ourselves, people will take kindness from us first and foremost, because our authentic selves at our core, 100% of all humans, our pure core is kindness, because that's the unity that we all carry.
huh, that's interesting. And it makes sense because when you connect with your heart, and when you see like the divine energy, in the sense of like
Right.
the integrity of the individuals,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
all that can come out is kindness. It's that
Yep.
connection, and it's love in the connection way, right?
Right.
Towards
And
each
the way the world is right now, we currently make our popular people assholes by default, because we project so much onto them that, one, they're like trying to retract from all the projections,
other.
and two, they're sort of being forced into a personification, whether they actually carry it or not. And either they take it and allow it and become it, or they just remain who they are. But now they've got a wave of so many people like saying they are this way, and now everybody's agreeing upon it. Meanwhile, they're actually not an asshole, but
No,
everybody has now spread that rumor and made that a truth, which goes back to our illusion thing. Everything is an illusion. That's all fabricated by human
exactly.
condition.
Yeah, absolutely. And you become that illusion if so many people like project that toward you. You just become it.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
like everyone has put their their 5 cents into it, and it just became this massive picture of, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, totally see that. It's interesting because how much the aspect of detachment is connected to the illusion, like detaching
Mm,
that illusion, accepting that this is not necessarily the truth, there might be
mm,
other truth out
mm,
there. And that whole detachment piece is so important on our journey because it allows you to stay open to any possibilities, anything
mm,
that is
mm,
around you. And if we would have met, you and I, probably 2 years ago, for me not understanding the shadow aspect at that time, not understanding the illusion, not connecting with my heart, I'm sure we would have had a complete different interaction two
Well,
years
I
ago.
wasn't even my own knowing about that stuff at the time either. So, yeah, who knows what do we have? We might have just been two ships passing in the night at
I
best.
don't know. Exactly. So it's just fascinating how the journey, the more you're detached from the outcome of the journey or detached from your ego and just allowing things to flow,
Mm-hmm.
it's fascinating. And I'm thinking of even like, I don't know for you, but March and April, maybe not so much, but March, April for me was like, if I think back, was the theme of detachment. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, so present. Like just thinking back of everything that I went through in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like emotional roller coaster, realizing that in my relationship I was very much codependent. Like I was that royal we, right, in the relationship. And there was so many aspects of it that, yeah, thinking about it, it was a pure detachment, a lesson of detachment. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Yep. And it just I guess maybe as we're probably getting closer to the end of this podcast, like it brings me back to the one thing that no matter what, it's all a journey of love. Like it's all a journey of divine love. So all these things that we're talking about are perfect or they wouldn't be allowable. They wouldn't even exist. They wouldn't be in our spectrum of imagination of creation because we get to explore these things because of the divine love that created our reality, this illusion.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And I think in the end, if there's one attachment that is the most healthy one, is with that divine love, is that connection you have with your heart.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. It is, and that is where we all meet in oneness. That's where the oneness exists. And that's where non-duality is true. Is in the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Duality is also an illusion, but it's created as a reality through our mind, through our mental scape. Gaining, we've already talked about a lot of that. So it's like, um, yeah, attachment and detachment are good things to kind of kick around, I think, and see where we are in it, and not beat ourselves up for anything too much or praise ourselves for anything too much. Like literally, just kind of, as Buddha said, find the middle road between praise and blame, where everything just feels good. But to appreciate that middle road, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to force ourselves into it, we have to go the extremes to know the boundaries, our envelope, and
Right.
what we like and what we don't like, and what the world reacts to us through, how the world reacts to us through our different ways that we're operating, and finally just find that middle ground and be like, wow, this is where the bliss resides. But it's almost like you can't get to that bliss truly if you don't know the
It's
strong attachment, strong detachment. Like, uh,
it's the yin and the yang, right? Like it's that
right.
it, it, it's interesting because while you're talking, I'm thinking, well, detachment and synergy is like could be almost be perceived as two opposite, but when you combine attachment and detachment, it becomes
Hmm.
that synergy. It's like that capacity to balance everything.
Right. Right. And in the story of the angels and the devil, like what's the difference? The devil is just an earth angel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's it. Still, it's still an angel. you
Yeah.
know? And actually, I saw this quote that said the devil is really optimistic if he thinks he can make humans worse than they already are.
That's hilarious. Is that in your new book?
That's from the new book, exactly.
Too funny. You should share the cover so that our listeners on YouTube can see the
Oh
cover.
yeah,
It's a pretty awesome
yeah.
cover.
So here's this book I got at Goodwill, the Goodwill bins. If anybody's ever been to Goodwill bins, The Devil's Mischief. It's a bunch of different authors: Baudelaire and Edgar Allan Poe, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, quotes from the Bible, all about devil kind of stuff. Yeah, The Devil's Mischief on Abbeville Press. So I think it's funny. It just everything is the same. Attachment, not attachment, duality, non-duality. It's all the same. We're here on Earth. We're having this experience. But I think what I would say in my final notes today is that why this stuff is important to know is so that you can find your way out of the mental trap.
Yes, detach from it, basically.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And when you find your way out of it, you can become your best self. And when you become your best self, that actually starts to create the world that you want. You become, as Gandhi said, the change that you wish to see in the world, not by force, but by allowance.
And that summarized the experience I had yesterday that I was sharing about like my frustration. I was
Yeah,
able to detach from my mental state. It was still present,
right.
but I didn't see it as defining who I was.
Just right. Exactly.
Really,
It's not
like
defining you.
it was not defining me. It was
Yeah.
just part of me. I
Yeah.
recognize that, but it
Uh-huh.
did not. I did not attach to it. Like it was just a moment. That's it. Like it was a moment, and I detached from it. I observed it, but it did not define. It was very interesting because I could have said that I was in a state of anger and frustration.
Yeah.
By detaching, I was no longer in that state. I was still experiencing it,
Yeah.
see the mind struggling, but I was no longer in a state. I was in a state of observation of the.
Yeah. And that gives us all of our real power by being in that state. That's where our real power comes from.
Yeah,
Not what we project, but what we really are.
yeah, it felt so good. It was almost like it was a blissful moment in so many ways because I was like, wow, I'm capable of doing this. Like it
Mm,
was really fun.
so cool. That's so cool. Yeah. And I guess what we would say is like to the listeners, like, again, like this is just a journey that Isabel and I are sharing. And we've learned a lot. I don't know if you could call it wisdom, but it's called a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, definitely.
The
Let's call it the experiment.
experiment, right? The recognition that we're in an experiment.
Yeah, I don't know who's the scientist, but
It's the self.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so yeah, if everyone's experiencing that sense, like had an experience about the sense of detachment, like we're inviting you to share that because that's
Yeah, of course.
kind of fascinating to hear about, like when you're
Yep.
capable of doing that or when you experience it. Because I shouldn't say capable because I didn't control it; it just happened that way that I was
Mm,
in that state of detachment. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you share with us. I've mentioned also a little bit earlier when was sharing his book that we are going to put our videos on YouTube.
Oh
So
yeah.
if you are more of a visual person than audio, you can definitely check it out on our YouTube page, which is when.
It's Synergy Our Journey. Everything, all of our social media is Synergy Our Journey. Instagram, YouTube, uh, Podbean, obviously, uh, and Facebook, and our email, synergyourjourney@gmail. And also, we're on Google Play and iTunes, are we not?
We are. We're officially, and someone reached out and told me about another app, which is I can't remember what it is, but I'm going to add it to. I can tell you in 1 second
All right.
because that's what we're looking for. If there's any like apps, Spotify is the other app that
Mm,
people did reach out to me and say that our podcast was not on. So if
Oh,
you find out that there's other ways that you want to listen to us, just let us know, because we're learning as we go here.
yeah, definitely. And we will probably be on a radio show, a popular radio show here this summer.
That's awesome.
Um,
Forward.
and yeah, if there's other ways that we can share, like Facebook groups or other radio shows or any platform, please share that with us, listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had a thought this past few weeks that, we're sharing our journey, but eventually we'll have guests that will be
Exactly.
their journey. So I'm really
Right.
excited about that.
I am as well. And if you feel like you want to be a guest on our show, let us know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that was great chatting with you, Win. I hope
Yep.
listeners, you enjoy this conversation, and let's continue the conversation on our Facebook page.
Definitely. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Isabel.
Thanks. Take care.